All right, good morning and welcome to Iyun with Benzion, Yevamos, Daf Lamed, number 30. It's a very exceptionally difficult daf today, and we have an exceptionally difficult Iyun Benzion. This is my second time recording it. The first time I got lost in my own thoughts when I was trying to explain it. So let's try it again. Obviously, you're not going to see the mistake, but it was there. I'm telling you, I am human. It's not so easy, this stuff. Learn the shot itself in this Gemara is very difficult. This daf is very difficult, certainly the Iyun, but we'll try to get into this. This Iyun really jumps into the crux of the sugya over here, so it's even more difficult. The Mishnah said daf lamed, Mishnah Shlosha Achim, the last Mishnah, Shlosha Achim, Shnayim in the Sun, Shnai Achayos, Lamed Amid Aleph, Be'echanas and Nachras, again, two brothers married to a sister, and the third brother is married to a different lady, not a sister. Girish Achim Bali Achayos says Hishto, let's say the second brother was married, Shimon. He divorced his wife, Umes, Nasai Nachras, and then Levi died. Right, so his wife is now free for Yibam. Makansa Megarish, and then the Megarish, the one who already divorced his wife, divorced one of the sisters, marries her, Umes, and then he died. Shimon died. Now Reuven is up for Yibam. Once the Gerushin happened, like a Mishnah taught on Daf Beizam and Aleph, the Gerushin happened, so therefore she's no longer considered a Sarah's Erva. Because already Gerushin, by the time she was married to Shimon, the sister was already gone. She's not a Sarah's Erva, and therefore she's mutter to Reuven. So the Gemara says, Medayik, time of the Girish Achach Meis. It's only because Shimon went ahead as Megarish and then he died. Then Levi died. On Meis Achach Girish, but if Levi died first, and then Shimon divorced his wife, Asura. Rav Ashi is also married to Zika. We can prove from here, Rav Ashi says there is Zika. The fact that if Levi dies first, and then now, even though Shimon wasn't Koniasar, he didn't do Yibam yet to Levi's wife, but there's a Zika, Rav Ashi proves there's a Zika, there's a connection, there's a half marriage between Levi's wife and his own wife, which is one of the sisters. So therefore, it makes her Sarah of Achos Ishta, because now he's still married the sister of Reuven at this point, before he's Megarish, and that Isser, that transmits the Erva to the Sarah. Even though he's Megarish Erva afterwards, the Sarah still retains her Isser. That's what Rav Ashi says. The Gemara brings a Laman Beis Rava. Rava is Shita, because we have a problem with the Mishnah on this Mishnah and the Mishnah on that Beis Amid Aleph, Beis Amid Beis, the first Mishnah on Masechta, because the Mishnah over there seems to imply it doesn't make a difference when the Gerushin happens, even if the second brother who's going to do Yibam is Koni marries the sister. It doesn't matter when he marries, when he's Megarish, or even if he marries the Sarah, and then he's Megarish the Erva, it still would be a clean Gerish, and the Sarah wouldn't get the status in Erva, even though they were joined in marriage. She wouldn't transmit the status of a Sarah. So the Gemara says a couple lines before the Mishnah, Laman Beis, Rava Hanicha Yisar V'Laka Rav Ashi. It makes sense. Rava feels like a Rav Ashi. Zui Lamute, because that's our Mishnah on Daf Lamed. Zui comes to exclude something. Zui Lamute mace below Giresh. Comes to exclude a case where he died below Giresh. Now that's interesting. He says our Mishnah says Zuhi at the end of Zuhi Lamut Zuhi Sha'am Rukush Mason is Gash Sarasam Mutaris. What is it coming to exclude? That's where they say only the exact case in the Mishnah on Laman Aleph, but if what's it coming to exclude a case where Maze below Giresh, meaning that Levi died, and then before Shimon got a chance to Megarish his wife, he didn't even do Gerish, right? There was just a Zika between Levi's wife and Shimon's sister. He didn't even do Gerish, and then Levi died, and then Shimon died. So just a connection in Zika, that's enough already to answer them on Reuven. Now, the question is, why doesn't Rashi pick the exact case that the Gemara says, or Rashi says? That Rashi says, Zui Lemute Mites Dafka, first to happen the Gerushin, and then the Misa. First he has to divorce the wife and not the Misa. So Rashi tries to explain the reason for his Girsa. He changes the Girsa. Seemingly that Girsa, the Agos brings that the Rif and the Gaonim had the Girsa. To exclude Mace below Girish, like Rav Ashi says, Mace below Girish. Rashi says it can't be that way because we already proved from Rava the way he resolves the Mishnah on Daf Beis and Daf Lamed, he resolves it to say that Shas Misa, Rava holds Shas Misa as Mapelas, therefore whatever has Shas Misa. So if he's Magar, even if Levi dies and then he's Megarish the woman, he's Megarish her, it wouldn't make a difference because at Shas Misa, the only thing that matters is when Shimon dies. When Shimon dies, already he's Megarish. It doesn't make a difference. Therefore, he changes the Girsa. The Rif and the Gonim argue, and they say you can keep the Girsa, Mezarka Girish. And they say, but Kol Shkem and Mez without Girish. What's the machlokus in Rashi and the Rif over here? I'd like to explain like this, that Rashi Dafka says, in this case, because the whole idea of a Sarah getting the status of an Erva, she gets, just like the Erva is Patrim Nachlis of Yibam because of the status of an Erva. So too the Sarah gets, we learn that from the Gemara and Dav Gimel, the Brisa says, Litzror, right? Isha Lachos, so that's the Erva. Litzror means as a rival. Normally the sisters are rivals, but it also includes any rival wife, even a co-wife with the Erva. You get the status. That's the way we explain it. You get the status of the Erva. That's the Chiddush of the Torah. You get the status of the Erva. If there's Gerish, it happens before the Yibam is available. Yibam happens. The opportunity for Yibam happens before the brother dies. So then it's no longer a case of Sarah. But if not, so the question is, there is a transmission of the Erva, of the status of an Erva to the Sarah. So I'd like to suggest that logically should only be in a case of marriage, in a case where Isha l'chos l'sikach and havaya, when it's a baal v'ishto. That's a case where he's married already to two ladies. He's married to an erva and another wife. So they're on equal footing. Since they're on equal footing, so therefore you can transmit the erva to, you can transmit the status of an erva to the sarah. And that's why Rashi says dafka. He says dafka in this case, only in this case, where mace below giresh. Why? Because in a mace and giresh, if he dies and Gerish happens, like Rashi explains, then Shas Misa, there wouldn't be any connection anymore. Right? There was never an equal connection between the Sarah, even if you hold Yesh Zika, it's not all Zika does, even if Zika is Kudus Adam, it only makes, like we explained, the Kinyan Yibum. It doesn't make a Kinyan Yisu in it. Kicha, Lo Sikach, Isha, Alchosa, Lo Sikach is Havaya, is based on the second part of the Pasuk, Bahaya Lali Isha. There should be a complete marriage in Yisuin. So therefore, he's married to one wife, and therefore he has a zika. The most zika is a kinyan yibum. So therefore, they're not on equal platforms. There's no way to transmit the isser of erva to the sarah. And by the time he dies, Shimon dies, or he's megarisher. Once he's megarisher, so she's out of the picture already. She's not connected to Shimon at all, and there's no transmission of the erva to the sarah. So Rashi says dafka the case should be asura to Ruvain, is where Levi was never Megarisher, and therefore he holds that even though they're on equal footing, they become a Sarah, even though they become a Sarah, they only be Bezika, they only be a Sarah Bezika, they only be a Sarah copy the Kinyan Yibam, not copy the Kinyan Yisuin. Rashi holds that would be enough, that would be good enough. And that would be the only way it should be Asura, otherwise she would be Asura. The Rif argues, and the Rif says no. The Rif says that because she was married to him, and then Levi died. So therefore she has a Zika. Because Rav Ashi holds Yesh Zika, even if Zika is only a Kinyan Yibam, but that is enough according to the Rif to affect a state of connection between them, to transmit the erva to from the sister to Levi's wife, to the Nachris. She becomes a sister also. And therefore she'll be Asr to Ruvain, even if he's Megarish afterwards. And I think the Gra, I don't know if the Rif actually says this or the Gra is just saying this. The Kol Shekain and Meis Below Giresh, I don't know if this is so true of a Kol Shekain. I would venture to say that it's possible the Rif would not agree in that case. I mean, the Rif would only agree because, like I said, the whole idea of Saros is only in a case where it's a situation of marriage. At least one of them is married. So if one of them is fully married to Shimon and then the Zika connects the Nachris to him, so that transmits. It's enough. It's already considered in a state of marriage, at least to one of them, so they can transmit through the Zika the status of an erva to the Sarah. But in the case of Rashi is saying maybe it wouldn't, because the only connection they have, he was never Megarish, or they only became a connected Saros Bezika. They're going from Saros Bezika because by the time he never was Kodesh, so therefore it was Meis Velo Giresh. It was Meis Velo Girish. They were on equal footing. They were never on equal footing. According to the Rif, maybe you have to be on. According to Rashi, it would be the connection in Zika, and the connection in Zika. But according to the Rif, maybe he would argue in that case, whereas he dies when Shimon dies without doing gerushin, because in that case there was never equal footing, there was never equal connection. One was married and one only has zika, so they can't transmit the situation, can't transmit it to the status of an erva to the Sarah, because one was married and one had a zika, so therefore can't transmit it. Tell me what you think about this. My thoughts. See you tomorrow. Bye.